Yeah, I'm here with Don Alexander from GeneCoda. Don and I we met about middle last year, I think, at a Launch Bio meeting. And we've been hanging out in various meetings and networking events and some beers and wines and I think some bourbons maybe at some point. I don't know. But Don, you have a lot of knowledge in the industry from your perspective, and so I wanted to just grab a few minutes of your time today so that we could maybe go through a couple of questions and get your viewpoint on the world. But before we get started, Don, can you just introduce yourself and what you do in Gene Coda?
Yeah, absolutely, Jay, and thanks for the invitation to speak today. And aloha.
Yes, I'm
Uh,
very jealous, by the way. I meant to mention that I love the fact you're isolated on an island, and I'm really disappointed that I was not able to be in Paris. So
Absolutely, absolutely. Even more surprising is that I've got really high broadband speed here on the island, so
you,
which enables me to talk to you in video.
that's right. It's
But
looking good.
oh well, my name is Don Alexander. I'm president and managing director of GeneCoda Professional and Executive Search. So for those that I haven't yet met, GeneCoda focuses exclusively on recruitment and executive search within the life sciences sector here in the United States. So we focus on pharmaceutical and biotechnology companies, medical device and diagnostic companies, as well as the service sector and tools companies that support those innovators and product manufacturers. We've recruited across a variety of different position types, everything from research and development at its earliest stages up through commercial products. So we've had the opportunity to work with fascinating companies developing quite a diverse array of assets within the greater industry. And of course, the industry itself, Jay, as you know, is so important right now, given the COVID-19 coronavirus scenario.
Certainly. And with where you sit, what would be your outlook on the industry in general right now during COVID, post COVID?
Yeah, no, that's a really great question, Jay. So we produce a report that's called Life Sciences Pulse. And it's in essence a labor market report that tracks the number of ads that the sector posts on a quarterly basis. So without getting into deep content, we'd certainly invite any listeners to download the report for themselves.
Hmm.
But our March data was just published, and in the first quarter of this year, as projected by our Q4 report, the industry did actually do rather well and posted over 500,000 ads for positions, within the first quarter of this year,
Wow.
which is really exceptional, quite frankly. We do expect some slowness heading into the second quarter of this year and are mostly seeing this in the form of deferrals or postponements
Hmm.
of hiring. And we feel like a lot of this will start to come back around in the latter part really of the third quarter and into the fourth quarter. And principally it's because the positions themselves haven't disappeared. They've just either been put on hold in some cases, and maybe in some cases, people are still wrapping their arms around how to do the interview process right now.
Yeah.
Q3 is historically a little bit slower in the industry than the other three quarters of the year. People are working very hard right now, and in some cases, probably vacations I would submit to you are being kind of bottled up.
Yeah.
And so I expect to, like myself now, I expect to see a lot of people on the beach here during the fall or late summer. But I'm optimistic, really, honestly, on hiring overall. And again, part of that principle is ingrained in the idea that our industry is really finding solutions to COVID-19, whether it's antibodies, the vaccine, which is still, a ways out, diagnostic tests. Our industry is very focused on resolving the problem. And in fact, yeah, I did have a thought that may be contrarian in a sense, and that's that we could conceivably see an upward spike in hiring in the industry,
Mm-hmm.
and that may be because of the government funding. Companies are chasing various solutions to the issue, and in some cases using their existing platforms to or repurpose drugs, things of that nature, to find again solutions to the problems.
Wow. No, that is interesting to think about. And, part of, most of my career has been in biotech, and I know that's what's on a lot of people's minds is, okay, are we going to be downsizing, or, is this going to cause, layoffs, mass layoffs and things like that? But based on, what you're hearing, what you're seeing, and your experience, it really sounds like it could be potentially even the opposite. It's just that things are delayed. Hiring's delayed, potentially positions are moved back a little bit, but the companies are still going to be looking to strengthen their teams and fill their positions here in the future.
Yeah, well, I would concur. And again, I think that it also is probably going to be segmented out to a degree, in that, for instance, clinical trials right now, I've heard that there are difficulties in, recruiting patients
Mm-hmm.
in
Mm-hmm.
some cases, or maybe patient adherence. So there could be certain, issues with ongoing trials. I've also heard that medical device and pharmaceutical sales reps are, somewhat sidelined,
Yeah.
from entry into the hospital, into the surgical center. And even our manufacturing and supply chains, they tend to have more of a rotating staff, if you will, still considered very much essential staff, but they may be taking turns, if you will,
Yeah.
and practicing social distancing even within those environments. So it is a different setting right now,
Mm-hmm.
but it's one again that will contribute greatly to the solution, and so we're thankful for that.
What are you telling candidates that you're having conversations with, who might now be on pause because the positions that you were working with them on are being delayed? What are you telling them, right now, to kind of put them at ease, or the things that they can be doing? What do those conversations look like?
Well, that's a great question. I think the key to that's really going to be communication, ongoing communication, and transparency. I can think of a couple of customers where they've again kind of put things on hold for the next few weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that it's just important to communicate that clearly, really, to our prospects, to let them know that, the bottleneck, if you will, is really due to the situation at hand with
Yeah.
COVID-19. And, and that's causing some timing effects,
Mm-hmm.
really. And just to continue to communicate with them, really.
Yeah. I talk to a lot of sales reps and managers and leaders in the industry, and I'm not going to obviously say names because I don't want to get anybody in trouble. But I was talking to a lot of reps, and you have some that are out there. They, like you said, they can't be in the hospitals, they can't be customer facing, but they're trying to find ways to communicate with their customers in a way that's meaningful and helpful. And then on the other end of the spectrum, I've have some people that I've talked to, and I would say that they're probably on an extended vacation right now, probably making a couple of phone calls, and then so a small group of people that I talked to, which I think this is really smart. Uh, they are actually doing training, so they're doing skill building things that maybe they needed to work on in the past that they just they didn't have time to do before because of the pace of sales and healthcare, and now they're actually doing the skill building and the training. What would be your advice to companies right now of these are the things that you can be doing with your teams. These are the things that you can do to help strengthen your organization.
Yeah, no, that's great. Companies need to be thinking about strengthening their teams right now. And as you point out, one way to do that is really to focus exactly on the training during downtime. As a downtime, quote unquote,
Yeah.
is a great time to do that. And I think the companies that do that will really reap the rewards on the other side of this.
Mhm.
I would also say that it's a good time generally to be recruiting people at this point in time. People are working from home, which
Mhm.
makes them a little bit more readily accessible than having to answer a call in the cubicle next to the one you sit at work.
Yeah.
So,
Nothing like those open floor plans, right? People scurrying
those
down
are
the
yeah,
hall like,
those are
"Hey, hold on a
recruitment
second, Don."
killers. Exactly, exactly. Let me call you back from my
Let me call you
cell
right back.
phone.
Yeah,
Let
yeah,
me go to
yeah,
the hall.
yeah. Sitting in the car.
So yeah, exactly. Exactly. And, I think that companies that are going to perform well are going to continue to hire through this. Again, to go back to the earlier point that some roles could disappear. But really what we're seeing now is that there may be a slowness to the process more than, again, did the need itself disappear?
Yeah,
So,
yeah. That makes sense. I did a session the other day with a colleague of mine. We just did some leadership development training for people, and one of the things that we were talking about is that a lot of companies are doing the right thing during this time. They're leading their people very well, and their culture is, being reinforced by how they're responding to their people and to the community and COVID situation. And some are really faltering, and that might be a risk for those companies to lose their top talent because right now, I would imagine that talent is assessing how they're being treated, how their organizations are operating in this environment. What are your thoughts on that?
yeah, I mean, I think that's, companies should consider those things. First and foremost, I think we have to recognize that the universe we're in with the life sciences industry, as we're speaking about this industry, is that really is a relatively low rate
Mm-hmm.
of unemployment in the industry even today, and that's projected to continue. Different industries have different dynamics. The hospitality and retail industries might be more significantly impacted by an
Mm-hmm.
event like this than the life sciences industry. So as companies, I think we need to keep in mind, that factor.
Yeah.
Um, I think another factor to kind of think about that dawned on me the other day in talking to someone is that, and this is about the workforce maybe as a whole, but, a lot of people have had challenges with their 401k, with their retirement programs. And as I got to thinking about that, even personally, I mean, what that can do is in essence push out retirement dates for
Mm-hmm.
people. We're hopeful that, this is a true V curve, that things go
Mm-hmm.
down and then they come back up. And historically, they always have, I should point out, the higher highs in the market. But especially for people that are closer to retirement age, that might keep them in the workforce a bit longer. And so we need to consider as companies, the impact that changing dynamic in the workforce might have.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I would say, it's really, companies have done a good job, I think, migrating to video interviewing at this point to help, to help the interview process, if you will, along. And when this is all, I guess, over, as we reach kind of the peak
Mm-hmm.
we'll see if we have a second wave and all of that. But I think employees really are contemplating are going to be looking at this in retrospect, how their employer handled COVID-19.
Right.
And, I guess on the one hand, if the company handles it well, I think the employees will be very loyal.
Mm-hmm.
And on the other hand, if they don't handle things well, there will be that'll be call for another changing of the guard, so to speak.
Right.
So I think it's very important for companies to consider that, they are being evaluated, I suppose. It's really important, I think, to treat employees well at all times, but in particular during a crisis situation with, again, what we talked about with communications and being transparent. And, I find, Jay, that many people are worried, if not scared, and, myself
Sure.
amongst them.
Yeah.
And those kind of feelings tend to manifest themselves in a staying put for now, rather than leaving scenario for a lot of people. So in some ways, it may actually be harder to recruit people right at this moment. But again, they'll be analyzing things as we go forward and how their employer handled the situation.
Yeah, makes sense. Makes complete sense. So, Don, is there anything that I missed that you would want to convey, or thoughts that you just had, and this crazy scenario that we're in, but also there is going to be a horizon on it. We are going to get out of our shells here at some point and go forth and be back to somewhat normal. I think there will be some changes. I do think that just like this, video is something that people are getting more used to. I think people that I've talked to said positions where originally they were thinking I would never have that work from home, or I would never have that position to work remotely. Now they may be more open to it and saying, you know what, I really like this person. They can't relocate, but you know what, this has proved to us that in this situation for that role, we can actually do it remotely. So I think there's going to be some changes maybe coming out that'll be very interesting. But is there anything else that just top of your mind that I've missed in the questions, or that you'd like to just kind of get out there?
Well, that's a great question. And just to dovetail on your point, I think that, Jay, I think that companies will really be able to open up opportunity in many cases to remote workers. I think this does transform the market in many, many ways. There'll be a bigger workforce that will be eligible for companies to recruit, because they don't have to necessarily recruit in their quote unquote own backyard. But maybe a couple other points that really kind of go hand in hand. One is just for the edification of the viewers, I put a post out on LinkedIn not too long ago, and it dealt with the height of prior pandemics as it relates to the stock market. So what we find is that once the maximum cases / deaths of any prior pandemic kind of hit its crescendo, that also coincided with the lowest point in the stock market for all four or five of the prior pandemics. And so we're going to be looking to see if that happens with this one as well.
Mm-hmm.
But employment tends to, of course, follow that curve. And so I just, I invite everyone to take a look at that post. But the companies that are going to do well with this scenario are going to be the ones that review their business models and really ask themselves from a hiring point of view, first and foremost, how does the coronavirus impact their business? Then how does that impact the hiring as a result?
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's important to really make the point or make the case to people that hiring or deferring hiring, if you will, is also a risk. And the main reason why that's the case is that competition will adapt and go ahead and make those hires sooner than you might choose to, if you're in fact one of the companies that's elected to defer altogether. So my theory is that some talent won't be available in the fall when companies that have put roles on hold decide it's time for them to resume hiring.
Mm-hmm.
So I would just tell people to be bold when stepping on the accelerator, so to speak, coming out of the curve, And just to evidence this as a final thought, I've seen several LinkedIn connections over the past couple of 2 or 3 weeks that have in fact changed roles or companies. So
Yeah.
it's clear that hiring is continuing in the world that we live in today.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think you're right. There's a certain population that's going to be a bit paralyzed. I certainly, when I was leading teams, and I think around the 2008, period during that economy, I had some people that were, we were already doing their retirement ceremony, celebrations and figuring all that out, and then they were like, hey, hold the phone. I got to extend it out a little bit, and you certainly had that dynamic. You certainly had some people that were just not willing to make a move because they're in a safe place. But I tend to find that your top talent people are the ones that would be bold, who would be in that bucket that you just talked about, that they could be available. And I would be looking at this as an opportunity to strengthen my team and bench. Whether that's hiring, going ahead and hiring. If I had the means to do it, I would hire, and I would take this downtime to train and get them up to speed and get that team solidified, so that as soon as the start gate lifts, we're going out and we're being incredibly impactful and incredibly effective. So, I
Right.
think all the dynamics you've talked about, at least for me, speak to opportunity actually,
Absolutely.
in this. So, well, I tell you, I'm really jealous. Next time we get on, hopefully I can figure out how to get myself in Paris, or some other, the Coliseum or something. I was trying to find a fun destination today, but I couldn't pull it off. But really appreciate your time here, and your website and what you post is always very meaningful. There's a lot of great tools there. There's a lot of great resources that you provide out there to the community. So, certainly for the video of this, I'll make sure that I have your website, and if you don't mind, your LinkedIn information, because I really think it'd be meaningful for people to connect with you and follow you and go to your site. But for audio listeners, or anybody, can you just share your information so that we make sure that people know how to get in touch with you?
Absolutely, Jay. Our website is www.genecoda, GeneCoda. That's Charlie Oscar Delta Alpha. I had to think about that for a second. .com, GeneCoda.com.
Great, great. And then Donald Alexander on LinkedIn, can
On
definitely
LinkedIn.
find you there. You are very active on LinkedIn. We took that class together.
Yes.
Deborah taught us the way. So
Showed us the light.
that's right. That's right. So, well, again, really appreciate the time that you've spent here, and in our conversation. Always a pleasure. Hopefully, we're able to, I don't know, meet at a NC Bio networking group at the wine bar here soon when all this lifts. And certainly look forward to grabbing some time and catching up with you face to face.
As am I, Jay. I'm certainly looking forward to that day.
Sounds good. Take care, Don.
You too.